quarterback, maybe you'll win. Don't worry about these guys.
I don't think they need to draft a quarterback. Look, I agree with a lot of what he's saying. Like, good teams that go far in the postseason and have a chance, you got to have a quarterback.
I mean, it's a great take.
I mean, but the other part about a young quarterback, all that.
He's searching.
I didn't really think that he was searching. It's like, I think he wants them to go after Shedeur.
Yeah, but they're not going to.
But you have the opportunity to take one of the best players, if not the best player in the draft, Abdul Carter, if he's available. Look, the Browns, they've always botched kind of the quarterback situation anyway.
And by the way, like it would be if Abdul Carter is the prospect that he profiles out to be. Somebody's getting single team. You know what I mean?
Mandatory.
Right. You can't double both the edges every play. And so it should be just Miles should see the best front. Occasionally, he would be the one single team like they would be. So that'd be good. I'm disappointed in myself.
Oh, you figured it out, you said in the break.
Oh, yeah.
It's so obvious.
Here we go.
They're the team that after the draft, they're not doing it right now because they want to see if the Giants maybe will trade up to get the quarterback. They're the team that's going to trade for Kirk Cousins. Kevin Stefanski.
That makes sense.
Had you said this?
You said it, didn't
you? Minnesota relationship.
Right. He had his best year. Yeah. He was 26 touchdowns, 6 picks. My apologies if I heard you say it and then thought I came up with it. Won a playoff game. It's very odd that Atlanta's just sitting on him. And the timing of this, unlike the Rodgers stuff, the timing is like, why would this be happening? It makes total sense for the Browns to wait to trade for Kirk because they don't have to worry about someone swooping in and doing it first, and they want the plausible story of we might be drafting Shedeur. So Giants, if you love him, which it doesn't seem like they necessarily do, but if you love him, you better trade up to get him because we might take him. And that to me, by the way, could work. Could Kirk Cousins be better than Joe Flacco was 2 years ago?
Yes.
Yes. Would the Browns defense with Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter potentially be as good? Because that Browns defense 2 years ago was unbelievable.
Yeah, they were.
Could they recreate that? Sure, maybe. So that to me is the one that makes sense. And that it makes sense why Atlanta hasn't done anything yet, why the Browns are doing what they're doing. The Stefanski
and they already
relationship.
play Baltimore and Cincinnati tough. So.
Yeah. You gotta love these draft conspiracy theories or predictions. They're going to trade for Kirk Cousins, or maybe Myles Garrett is trying to campaign for Shedeur Sanders. Man, what are we supposed to do here? This is why Colin Cowherd keeps taking off on Fridays and stuff, and just keeps posting best of whatever shows, because it's just everyone just starts making stuff up. They're trying to play the Giants to get the Giants to trade up to get Shedeur. I mean, I see it going in so many different directions. I mean, they obviously brought up Joe Flacco, and that's what I was going to bring up, where they obviously have experience winning with an older quarterback, but I don't know. I don't know how people feel about Kirk Cousins in this moment of time, seeing how he kind of fell off. And I know there was kind of reports that he got injured, and I'm a Kirk Cousins fan. And now that you also have a full year away from the injury, it's just so hard to really predict what a Kirk Cousins level quarterback will look like in this moment of time. I really have no idea. I have no confidence. None in any direction. So, I don't know, right? I don't know if that's the quarterback that you bring in to be all right, here we go, we're gonna win. Because then you might run into a situation where you kind of are essentially the Atlanta Falcons 2.0. And I think the Browns are come on, let's go. And that's why I think if we take Myles Garrett at face value for what he's saying, let's just say what he's being honest right now, and what he's saying is, we need a better quarterback and we need one that's young. He's kind of saying, get us a quarterback who's going to be our great quarterback. And now I'm thinking, through his mind, for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Like, that's the window right now, man. You paid me all this money. I only have so many more years of being as dominant as I am right now. Like, we got to get after it. And we got and if we're gonna go young, we got to start this train like today. If we're drafting a 22-year-old, well, we need him to be 23, 24. Like, we got to get this going. We got to get this going. We can't keep kicking this down. It's like if we were going to draft another young quarterback next year, we're still pushing this back. We need our young quarterback to be second year, third year. Like, we need to get this going. But that's kind of the problem with the NFL right now. It's you either have to start this early ride with a young quarterback who's like 21, 22, who clearly needs to be developed, who's going to need a couple years to get settled, just a fact. Or you got a quarterback who looks like, is he about to retire? I don't know if he can throw the ball more than 10 yards. It's just like, it's so binary. We're just at such extremes, and it's hard. And that's why the most interesting quarterback of the offseason was really Sam Darnold. Because he is young. He was the 27, 28, whatever exactly his age is in this moment of time. He wasn't like retirement age, and he's not so young. We're like, he needs to be developed. He had an unbelievable season, but then obviously came up short with the Vikings. So then people were kind of like, I mean, I think he could have had a lot of success with the Browns there in that situation. Like, I would have felt more comfortable going with Sam Darnold than Kirk Cousins. Because I saw him play high-quality football more recently. You know what I mean? It really becomes that simple. And so if you are going to draft a quarterback, like the Browns are in such a fascinating situation. That's why every situation that kind of gets brought up feels like, well, I don't know, do they want Shador? Are they going to try to trade up and get Cam Ward? Is that even remotely possible? Even if they were in love with Cam? Do they want Carter? And then they are going to get Kirk Cousins. I mean, what's your fallback plan? At least the Falcons had Penix. And you can make the argument if they went to Penix earlier, they make the playoffs. If this was last year before we ever saw Kirk Cousins play, I would say, yeah, it's great. Go out and get Kirk Cousins, etc., etc. I just fear at this point, with these quarterbacks at this level, you just keep running into very similar situations that we see with Russell Wilson, even Flacco. Kirk Cousins was a little bit more of extreme of the example of this, and so was Aaron Rodgers, where you get some of these older quarterbacks, and they show some flashes. They often go on some sort of a win streak. Everything feels really awesome, and you're watching the quarterback succeed in a way that makes you feel like it's like 8-10 years earlier, and you're kind of combining that together with what you're seeing in the present. Like Flacco, there was a feeling that Flacco and the Browns could like go on a legitimate run, and you're thinking Flacco's done it before. And same thing when we were watching the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russ. There's the feeling of like, hey, this defense is legit. Russ is legit. This is very reminiscent of the Seattle Seahawks when they went to the Super Bowls. And you start combining all of this together, and you're like, they got this. Like, let's go. And then it's let's go nowhere. Like it just, goes like this. So I don't envy the Browns right now. This is where it really is like, you got to trust Stefanski's vision. That will always be my default. When you have a great offensive coach, you have to kind of trust their vision. You got to trust, if he says, we have a team, I can win with Kirk Cousins. I can win. I saw him. I've been looking at the film. I've been looking at Atlanta Falcons. He's obviously healthier. He got banged up. He was doing great until he hurt his shoulder or whatever. He's legit. Let's go out and get him. Let's draft Carter, etc., etc. If he's like, dude, no, we cannot do this with an older quarterback. We got to find our long-term quarterback today. And I think it's Shador or something. I don't know. Whatever it may be. That's why I'm always so conflicted with these types of stories. Because, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm such a broken record, and I don't want to keep bringing it up, but it's just like, I don't enjoy all the wild speculation. I'm curious if you guys do, and it might change from fan base to fan base, but the constant wild speculation of like, oh, they're trying to do this or a smokescreen for that, or what they really want to do is this. And it's just like, I don't know. I rather just know what the plan is and then unpack the plan. Unpack what we, if it was like, okay, we know that they're going to go get Kirk Cousins. Great, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the pros and cons, the risks, the rewards, what we think is possible, et cetera, et cetera. Or if they're like, no, they're going to get Shador, let's talk about it. Shador's timeline, compare that to Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's timeline. Compare that to, would it be better to have Carter, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't know. And if they weren't going to draft a quarterback, then again, I question then why they didn't then go out and get someone who was significantly younger, like a Sam Darnold. You don't have to pay him that much relative to what he got, with Seattle. If Kevin O'Connell can win with him, certainly Kevin Stefanski is going to believe that he can win with him. You could then still draft Carter. I just don't know if Kirk Cousins is the play, honestly. Like I have to think about it more, and I have to watch his games where he was where he was playing really well, and then when apparently this reported injury took place, and if that's really what we're attributing his quick downfall, because he started off poorly, then played pretty well. Because again, even something like his second game or third game, whatever game it was, when he beat the Philadelphia Eagles and kind of came back, you're like, yeah, like that is legit, and not any quarterback can do that in the NFL. And so, like, when you look for these pockets to get excited by, yeah, I don't know. And then what does Kirk Cousins look like when it gets really cold, which we know it's going to get cold? What's it going to look like when it's a brutal freezing game in Baltimore, Pittsburgh? It's all windy and swirly, kind of some snow in the air a little bit. Like, I don't know if Kirk Cousins is the guy in that moment in time. And now I don't know. I'd love for Cleveland Browns fans, for the ones who are connected more to the local media, who are potentially getting higher quality insider information and not just wild speculation of all the tinfoil hat theories. I'd love to know what you guys are hearing more on the ground in Cleveland as to like what you think is likely to happen here. I mean, if we just trust the odds, it looks like they're going to get Carter. And then the question remains, who will be what do they do at the quarterback position? And if the best option is Cousins, yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I honestly don't. It's a weird situation. It's a weird situation, and it just feels like if they get a young quarterback, here's what's really interesting about the Browns, and this will be my last point here. You have the Steelers that don't know what they're doing at the quarterback position. They're a mess. They can't figure it out. And if they go out and get Aaron Rodgers, that's actually great for the Steelers, because that also continues to kick the can down the road for when they're finally going to get their long-term quarterback. You have Lamar Jackson, who's aging, and Joe Burrow, who's aging, right? These quarterbacks one day will suddenly not be who they once were. But it happens quickly. People already think it happened with Mahomes. And I'm not saying he has or he hasn't, but when you start watching Patrick Mahomes play, it's very clear that he's not who he was 3 years ago, at least from a mobility standpoint. I don't mean from his talent and his ability to win games, but it's just different. And Josh Allen one day, it's just going to be different. And so if you get a young quarterback, someone who's 22, 23, when it's time for them to step in and really be that guy, be in their prime, you're talking about now going up against these other quarterbacks who are like 32, 33. They just start getting up there in age. And it's like you start to kind of come into your prime as a team when potentially these other AFC teams are now starting to be on the decline or just nowhere near as dominant as... I mean, Joe Burrow's been getting banged up left and right his whole career. What do you think he's going to look like 3 years from now? I mean, it's a real thing. And again, Lamar Jackson will lose a step. He has to. Every single player under the sun loses a step. Again, I would argue that Mahomes has already lost a step, and his game has fundamentally changed. The way how they use him from a mobility standpoint and the amount that he runs has gone less and less and less and less and less. So you can make the argument that it's like right now is kind of the perfect time to continue to get a young quarterback, develop that quarterback, because by the time he's really mature ready to ball when he's 24, 25. You're going up against now these other quarterbacks who are just, not necessarily still on the incline. You might still have a couple of years where they're still balling and in their peak, but like I said, things happen fast, and all it does is take one injury. Boom, Lamar Jackson hurts his knee, misses a whole season. I mean, like we've seen this story again and again and again and again and again. So it's like, it's not it's not that hot of a take, and sometimes coming into your prime at the right time. I mean, it was perfect that the Patriots, that Tom Brady, his career was ending essentially. At the very least, it was ending in New England. Then Josh Allen comes to town. Everything changes if Tom Brady's still in his prime, and now you have Josh Allen. I mean, like it just changes everything. You think they're winning the division year after year after year after year? Of course not. Of course not. So it's just like those things matter. What if Patrick Mahomes enters the NFL and Peyton Manning's in his prime playing with the Broncos? I mean, that changes everything. Changes everything. Even having Phillip Rivers in his prime changes everything. So, it was a benefit to the Philadelphia Eagles to have Jalen Hurts enter his prime. And you're dealing with like the Cowboys, who were always just kind of all over the place, the Commanders, who were failing at the time, and the Giants, who were failing. It benefits them. It benefits them even that the Eagles played the Rams this past season, and they're dealing with an old Stafford. If Stafford was 28 more in his prime, that game might go differently. It's like it's so the timing honestly even starts to begin to make sense, that you start to come into your own when everyone else is kind of starting to slip. Again, the Steelers, if they still had Ben Roethlisberger, who knows what happens between prime Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers versus the Ravens, versus the Chiefs even. Who knows if it's the Chiefs, if it's the Steelers that end up going up against the Chiefs all this time, or that we keep seeing the Chiefs go up against the Bills. It just changes everything. So I think that's actually something worth to think about, that you're kind of looking at the trajectory of some of these other quarterbacks, these other teams, when they kind of start breaking down and having to rebuild, start to potentially look for another quarterback, and see how that fits into your own timeline when you're kind of developing a quarterback. It's a huge advantage for the Eagles and the Commanders right now that Dak Prescott's like in his 30s. They paid him a bunch of money. He's not a 25-year-old who's about to just light the league on fire. And it's an inconvenience for the Eagles, where they won their Super Bowl, and now they have a hot shot, Jaden Daniels, who's young and ready to go. And it's inconvenient for Jaden Daniels that he entered the league, and he's like, oh, well, this Eagles team is a dominant, awesome team. So, just something to think about. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Cleveland Browns? Do you think they need to draft a quarterback at 2? Do you think they will draft a quarterback at 2? And any Cleveland fans who are locked into the local Cleveland media, let me know any of the things that you guys are hearing. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.